purpose God has for them. So, this is our guide. Just like a map will get us to where we need to go, right? This helps us travel in life along the paths God has for us. Have you
I pray that according to the riches of His glory, He may grant that you may be strengthened in your inner being with power through His Spirit, and that Christ may dwell in your heart through faith.
Maps direct us to places, do they not? They tell us where we're going on the trip, how to get there, hopefully. But you know, maps can also help us order our world. We might say we have mental maps in our world of how we view the world, a world view. And these maps about how we understand the world or how we understand different actions in the world. I have a map on how it is to garden, or there's a map and understanding of what does it mean to bake a cake. You follow a map, a recipe. We call it a recipe. And these maps can have extraordinary power over us. For example, until 1492, Europe was bound by the mental maps that they had. They weren't quite sure if the world was round or if it was flat. We searched for the right technique, the proper method, the perfect program that can immediately deliver the results of spiritual maturity that we are looking for. Churches do this. They seek the right church growth program. Or even worse, they try to find the perfect pastor. We try to create that perfect setting where God can instantaneously transform us into wholeness. And while there are transforming spiritual moments in our lives, and I do not want to minimize those moments when we come to a new understanding of faith and we first encounter God's love in our life. There are those moments. But overall, the reality is that discipleship is a process. Listen to the prayer of Paul to the church at Ephesus in our scripture that was read by Jim this morning. Paul says, I pray that God may grant that you may be strengthened in your inner being with power through His Spirit. I pray that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith as you are being rooted and grounded in love. And I pray that you may have the power to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth and the length and the height and the depth, and to know the love of Christ that surpasses knowledge, so that you may be filled with all the fullness of God. And then later he says, but speaking the truth in love, we must grow up in every way into Him who is the head, into Christ. So there's this image of growth, and our spiritual growth is patterned on the nature of physical growth. But in order to receive that molding, we have to maintain an openness to God's Spirit, to allow God to work in our lives. And we do that through the spiritual processes of prayer, which oftentimes can take the form of silence, through worship, of opening our hearts and expressing our gratitude to God, through study of the Scriptures, where we seek to understand God's roadmap for us, that God might light our path. And so discipleship is a process of being conformed to the image of Christ. And we enter into this process not for our own sake, not so we can experience some spiritual high, but so that we might be whole human individuals, and that God can then work through to bring wholeness in the lives of others. We enter into discipleship as a process of being conformed to the image of Christ for the sake of others.